But we're going to first talk politically about what Peter Sinclair thinks was positive, but perhaps also missing in action from the president's speech as it relates to climate change. Peter Sinclair, of course, is the creator and founder of the fabulous blog Climate Crux, and Peter in particular was at a conference last week where he interviewed Katharine Hayhoe. So as soon as I get your comments, Peter, on the State of the Union address, we'll talk a little bit about that and the conference you attended. Thanks for joining me on the Green Front.
Well, what a surprise. This is great.
I thought I told you I needed you today to talk about that conference and your interview, but if you didn't know, I apologize for that, but thanks for being available in a pinch. That's showbiz. That's news biz. I'd like to get the latest stories on, and you were on my mind because of that great interview you did with Katharine Hayhoe. But before we get to that, what did you think of the president's talk last night?
Well, I have to say I was a little disappointed. I would have liked him to come out swinging more on climate change. But on the other hand, I'm not as kind of reflexively negative as a lot of people are. I think there's a game going on at a certain level here, and I think that the president is aware of the climate issue. I think certainly his Energy Secretary, Dr. Chu, is very well aware of what the stakes are. I think we have a unique situation in the Congress where we have a group of people from the other party, the Republican Party, who are, in effect, living in a different universe because we've created this alternative Fox News media universe over the last 10 or 15 years where it's possible for people to believe a whole lot of things that are simply objectively, empirically not true.
You just gave me a thought, just not to interrupt, even though I just did, and that is, here the Republicans are so negative on everything Obama does, and all they're doing is complaining and saying what's wrong, and yet the one real true problem we all face, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and alike, is, this huge beast in the room, climate change, and that's not an area where they think there's any problem.
Right. I'm not convinced that all Republicans are on that same page.
I agree, of course. I'm talking about those who are mostly on our television sets and on Fox News and
right.
are trying to do everything they can to keep scientific reality, away from the American people.
Right. Well, we have a peculiar situation in that during this primary season, the dog is being wagged by a very, very small and extreme tail. In each of these primary states, it's the most extreme wing of the Republican Party that is most motivated to come out and vote, and all of these presidential candidates are working very hard to please that group. Now, that doesn't excuse anybody else, but I do think that, and having had some conversations with people who have some fairly knowledgeable points of view, that there are people in the Republican Party who do get it, that we have a problem here. And the question is, how the heck do they walk it back at this point? Because these presidential candidates have gone so far out on a limb here. So the issue has for President Obama is how to move the ball forward in this kind of environment. And
absolutely. And he did talk about opening up, waters for drilling and fracking, so he really kind of put something in there for everybody because he also talked about solar and battery industry not going to China or Germany. Of course, that makes a lot of sense, and who could argue with that goal? And also about, powering 3 million homes through renewable energy on public lands for solar, wind, and presumably green technologies.
Right.
But it was a little disturbing for those of us who think the BP oil disaster should have been a warning sign about the dangers of drilling ever farther out into the ocean.
Well, I think the president is well aware that coastal activists and other folks will have a lot to say about that whole offshore drilling thing. I mean, he's a very bright man, And so he's put himself on record as saying, well, sure, let's drill some more offshore. He also, I'm sure, is aware that scientists like James Hansen, who obviously NASA's chief atmospheric scientist, are telling us that it's, from a climate perspective, the oil is not what's going to get us into trouble, and the gas is not what's going to get us into trouble, but burning all the coal we have and using the non-traditional oil like the tar sands from Alberta, that's what will really get us in trouble.
Which is what prompted Dr. Hansen to say if Keystone is, built, it will essentially be, game over for the climate. I think he might agree with the fact that if any of the Republicans get to the White House, since they don't, quote, supposedly believe in climate change or wouldn't certainly lead on that issue on fighting climate change, that it could also be game over for the climate if we have 4 years of this kind of deniasphere to face.